Okay. You may have not been able to hear me for the past 2 minutes. I think the captions will have been working, so if you had captions on, then you're probably fine. Let's try that again. Hello. It's Thursday. I'm not going to exactly repeat everything I just said, because mostly I waffled about jigsaw puzzles. What happens is every now and then Streamlabs decides that it's going to say that my microphone is correct, but actually it's just going to listen to nothing. It's listening to a supposed default that doesn't actually. I've got things set up in a way that where it doesn't exactly exist, and yeah, it's I don't think it was on. I'm sorry. At least I noticed now, and not like 15 minutes in. So yeah, so what I was saying, which is actually relevant and isn't about jigsaw puzzles, is that towards the end of last week, because I had that day where I was just really, really intensely anxious and couldn't do anything, and I didn't do any studying. That was Sunday. When I came back on Monday, I did stream, as you may have seen, you may have not. I did do some studying. I got a bit more done than I expected I was going to, but I didn't get as much done as I would have liked to. But then I don't think I ever get as much done as I would have liked. Today, I honestly think the major victory was that I got up on time because I slept so badly. I don't actually look like I slept as badly as I did, which is quite nice. Maybe I actually slept better than I think. It took me a very, very long time to get to sleep. Partly because I was so uncomfortable. So yeah, the fact that I got up on time and was here on time and, you know, dressed and looked like a human being. And I have read 2 articles thus far, one of which was really interesting, one of which had some interesting bits, but I think the thing that I'm finding is some of the stuff I'm reading in this book, because it's a like a community-made thing almost. There's definitely a lot of variance in the tone that the different articles take, and I don't want to say in the quality of them, because I haven't yet found one that hasn't been making interesting points. But for example, in this last one I read, there was a sentence that just sort of broke halfway through and then became another sentence in a way that was completely nonsensical. And stuff like that is off-putting for me. I used to be really judgmental of it, but I think I'm better at not being as judgmental now. But the problem is that I still, it pulls me out of it in a way. And like, I can ignore a small typo here and there, but when you've got an entire sentence that's, you know, clearly some copy-paste error has happened here, because there's no way you could have written the sentence and anyone would have read it. It's like, this is an edited book, so no one would have read that and thought that was fine. But yeah, so generally it was interesting. There was one analysing LARP from a postmodernist theory perspective, using different bits of postmodern theory to apply to it, some of which I sort of ghosted over my head a bit, because it wasn't, I think whilst the article promised to like explain all the theories they were using, they did that sometimes, and then not other times. And, you know, there was definitely, I think there were 3 theories that they used, and one of them came across really, really well, another sort of, and then the last one I just got lost and zoned out of the rest of the article, which is not the best thing to admit. But I think it's important to admit that sort of thing, really, because I have this perception that everyone else, when reading anything academically, it's 100% of it all the time, and that is not. No one does that. In fact, when you're trained, if you take classes on how to read academically, one of the things they will tell you is just skim it the first time and work out if it's relevant to you. If you need it, you can then go back and read it a second time. And yeah, so that I haven't quite internalized that very well. But yeah, so they had some interesting points about the transformation of fiction to fact through they called it common validation, like the idea that your fictional world becomes a factual world at the moment that people start to act within it and inhabit it. And one of the really interesting things they talked about was that small and mundane acts have like a far greater power and effect in LARP, because whilst so if for example I've played characters who just sit and knit in the corner, and that I was always confused when I did that as to how it felt as transformative as it did, and how relevant I felt, even though I was often just sort of present. I've done that a lot with NPCs as well, where I've like deliberately set out to be not fully backdrop, because obviously you're an interactive presence, and that's part of what this is saying, is that it's you're part of constructing that fictive reality. And you're always a potentially interactive part of it, even if people aren't, coming over and talking to you, you're still there. And so I found that really interesting. The second one I read, I mostly zoned out of, but there was a really interesting thing. It started off by talking about post-LARP charisma, which is, so people talk about post-LARP depression, which is where you come back into the real world and the real world is shit and you want to go back to whatever fictional world you were in before. But sometimes you also come out of it and you feel great and it's like you have control of everything. I think that's based on whether you come back to a shitty reality or a good one. But they talked about how this thing is, and this is a quote, a result of being divine for a certain length of time, and the idea that when you're LARPing, you are constructing a new reality around you just by existing and acting. They sort of talk about the differences, not playing God but being God. And that I found really interesting, and that's definitely something I relate to. And I think it goes really well with that idea of like small and mundane actions having a big effect. And I can feel like instinctively that that's connected to a load of things that I'm thinking about for the dissertation, but I haven't quite yet, gotten one to the other. I think maybe thinking about my different characters, I'm bringing the stories of different characters into this and thinking about how they act in sort of the structure of the game world. And I've got one character that's a very driving force behind things, and then I've got one that sort of weaves in amidst other people's stuff whilst having her own stuff going on that is secondary to the sort of the core of the game, and then clashes with it, and the interesting points of where that clash occurs. But then also thinking about moments that I've had in games that have been really, really impactful, and how often those things were very small. I have played an NPC once who her grandfather. Say grandfather. I'm not sure if it was precisely grandfather. I think it was something like that. Where her grandfather was a werewolf, or something to that effect, like a were creature. And they ended up in the same place, and she was very nervous and shy and didn't really want to be there. And he got very angry and aggressive. And I have this really vivid memory of holding one of the players' hands, because we had this. It was amazing. It was an amazing scene, to the point that all three of us are still talking about it. And I really vividly remember holding this one person's hand, and the fact that we were holding hands really tightly in that there was a genuine threat, but it's that small. I don't remember vividly, all the stuff that the other NPC was saying or the players were saying, but I really vividly remember that one point of physical contact, and it's really interesting that it's that small thing that says so much. And that, so I think if you look at it, you can link it to all sorts of things, and that's really interesting. So that's what I've been doing thus far today and thinking about. Obviously I'm here doing this. Then my plan is that what I want to try and do. I will take you through this. This is my so I bullet journaled a lot for years and really liked it. And then I got to a point, I think sort of around when my pain flares started. So like end of 2019, beginning of 2020, before 2020 became what it is. I stopped bullet journaling as much because it started to become a source of stress for me rather than a source of comfort. But I'm now starting to lean back towards wanting to do it again. This is the second week I've done a weekly spread. Last week, I closely followed it for like the first few days and then kind of forgot it was there for the rest of the week. Whereas this time I've actually like planned through the whole week. And I think it helps. I find when I know for definite what I want to do with my leisure time, that actually really helps me structure my working and studying time. I don't know if that makes sense. Because otherwise I just have this like, I get decision fatigue basically from my leisure time where work finishes and I'm like, but I don't know what I want to do now. I think usually like where I'd be commuting to and from uni and often on the way home, I'd think, oh my God, I really want to play this or do this or, you know, whatever it may be. I don't have that time. There's no commuting happening. But yeah, so my plan today, because today I've got mentoring, which is part of why I'm streaming now, because I'll have like a half-hour gap once this is done between this and mentoring. And mentoring lasts like all of the rest of my study time. Then tomorrow I have my supervision with my supervisor to talk about the stuff I sent her last week, which is absolutely terrifying, which I talked about, I think, on Monday, where I was saying she's amazing, but I've never had any kind of creative criticism from her. So whilst I'm certain it will be lovely and supportive and positive, there's still this like element of newness and of not knowing that makes it even worse. And I would be anxious about it anyway. So I'm trying to be sort of mindful of that and gentle with that. It's at the same time tomorrow as my mentoring is today. So I think tomorrow my plan is to stream either first thing or sort of more around now. It depends what I feel like. And to do the same thing as today, to read at least one article and to stop when I get fed up, to copy at least one note onto digitizing it and to stop when I get fed up, generally just to be relaxed about it. I can't study or stream as it happens Saturday. I've got other stuff on. So that day's out. So what I've then planned to do on Sunday is, and I think I've talked the last couple about wanting to do this, is to designate a writing day and to turn up to write, to not be allowed to do anything else studying wise except writing, so that I don't use, you know, digitizing notes or continuing to read as procrastination, because as we all know, at some point you have to stop reading and start writing. So yeah, that's my plan for Sunday. Sorry, autofocus really doesn't like my water bottle. And yeah, I don't know what's going to happen on that day. It might be horribly stressful. We'll see. And I think my plan is to stream towards the end of that, so I don't interrupt it. So you will get me turning up and going, oh my God, that was the worst, or hooray, I wrote some words. It will be one of the two. Won't be anything in between. And then Monday, I basically planned the same thing as today and tomorrow, except I don't have anything interrupting it. So I'll get some more time of, you know, getting to just make some general progress. I'm also slowly uploading all of the videos from here to YouTube so that they're permanently stored. I have got all of them. I'm just, I record all of them in high def, so they take a while to upload. And I'm just trying to do a couple a day, and that way I'll pull up at the end of the week, even including this week's ones, I think. Yeah, because this is 10, and I've already uploaded 3, so I'll basically catch up by the end. But yeah, so that's my plan. I haven't thought more about new milestones. I think I'll see how, I might talk to my mentor about it today, and I'll see how tomorrow goes. One of the other things I do want to do this week is to sort all of those quotes out and put them onto the right categories in my concept boards. Concept boards? Because I went to say vision board and I was like, they're really not vision boards. My brainstorm boards? That just sounds weird. Like collections of thoughts. that happen to be on boards. But yeah, so that's my general plan. I think it's a good balance between, the fact that even just doing this regularly is a big thing, and then also the idea of starting to keep myself plodding forward, but in a way that will actually get me towards where I need to go. That should help. I had an email yesterday that was a bit upsetting because so I am apparently still on all of the lists for PhD students starting now, because I should be. It's actually, today is 1 year since I first went to uni. For my masters, that is, not ever. I have a lot of problems with Facebook. One of the reasons that I both like and hate it is the memories function, and the memories function today was like, here is the first day that you went to campus and immediately went to the library. I just saw that and was like, oh god, I miss the library so much. I just miss being there. And then obviously combined with the email saying, here's your orientation for new PhD students. And I was like, oh, that's great. I won't need that until January. I will need it then. Assuming that I think I have to do quite. So I technically do have an entry requirement. I do have to get a merit, my master's, a merit or higher. But I've already got that as an average, because I got 2 passes, 2 distinctions, for my 4 courses. The passes are the fiction ones, and the distinctions are the medical humanities ones. So, I do have to do well on my dissertation, but I don't. It's not like I've got to absolutely kill it in order to have any hope of getting my mark to get in. So I'm not too worried about that. I think I've also mentioned this before and said, I can always take in the argument of, if you look at all of my academic work from this year, you'll see it's all distinctions. Yes, my creative work is lower. That's because I found that I preferred the academic work to the creative work. So hopefully there's that. Also, I'm self-funded, and so they will want my money. That's a really sad way to look at it, but it's probably true. So I'm not, obviously occasionally my brain weasels are like, what if you don't get in? But I really genuinely do believe that I'm going to be starting my PhD in January, and I'm working to that effect. And I'm really excited to talk to my supervisor again, because I think I've exchanged emails with her that said things like, hey, I got a new chronic illness and my grandfather died. Can I have an extension and deferral, please? That's been my contact with her. I miss her. I miss our reading group. I miss the campus. It's going to be a long time before I get back there, because I have to stay home as long as possible, because aforementioned chronic illnesses. And I think I'm very conscious that I don't, whilst my symptom is pain and discomfort, I do still have an undiagnosed issue that could result, that I could have immune system issues I don't know about. I have had several colds since COVID started, which has been every time really not very reassuring, but at no point have I been coughing. So, so it's going to be a while before I get that back. But I think it's weird, because obviously, I've done a lot of grieving for the normality of my master's degree and for the going into my PhD normally, but the whole point of deferring it was to mean that as much of it as possible is normal. But it's a weird thing, because obviously the grief is ongoing. You are grieving both for the past 6 months and also for the next 6 months and 6 months after that, and especially as someone where I'm one of my main hobbies involves going to a place with 30 people, which you can't do now. I've not done any LARPing this year, and that's weird. That is the first time that's happened in, how old am I? First time that's happened in 13 years. Oh wow, it really is. That's really strange. I've barely done any, like I do some role playing through work, but I haven't had like a continual like development of my characters thing like D&D or anything. Like, we had some D&D earlier this year, but then it petered out and I haven't had anything else and I miss it. And writing about it is making me miss it even more. As we have covered before, that I've sort of picked both the best and not the best topic. I mean, it's good. It's making me really appreciate it. It's making me think a lot about what I want out of it and, how I want to include it in my life. That sort of having that sort of analysis over this one thing then makes me able to do that over other things. Like, this might seem like a weird jump, but the new WoW expansion comes out in not too long. I don't think there's an exact date yet, but basically in a month ish. And I really want to play it. But obviously previously I've gone very all or nothing with playing WoW, and I'm starting to think like, no, it's okay that I want to play it this much a week and only this much a week, and that I don't want to be that I want to do raiding, but I don't want to do it 3 times a week like I was doing. Like when I started streaming, which was actually 3 years ago. It was only, it can't be more than 3 because I had this computer. But I did a lot of WoW streaming then, and it was very stressful, and I ended up quitting because it was just really, it had become really unpleasant, the raiding environment we were in. And then I went back and played like a bit casually and on my own, and was like, no, I really like this game. I just want to find a community that I like. So but I'm better able to like analyze that and think about that now because I've been analyzing and thinking about another hobby of mine, and that's yeah. So I think I'm probably actually going to go there. I feel like this has been quite short, but I've sort of run out of things to say. So that seems about right. Also, there's like 2 minutes of silence at the beginning of this. I still can't believe I did that. I'm going to have to check that every single time now. But yeah, so I will be back tomorrow. I may be a bundle of nerves tomorrow and anxiety because of my supervision. But it will be fine. My supervisor's lovely. I do know her. I've met her. It's not like going on a Zoom with someone you've never met before, who is then going to pick apart your writing. And I don't think she's going to pick it apart anyway. That's the thing. But yeah, so I will see you tomorrow, and I hope you have a lovely day. And notes for the next half hour or so. That's going to be so thrilling. I'm really excited about that, as you can see. My happy expression. I will see you all tomorrow. Thanks very much for coming.